Hello everyone, Phoenix61 here with a fresh dose of World of Warships Legends shenanigans. So today, a little bit different video. I know for my sort of like daily, weekly, weekday videos, right? Try and put some good replays out there and just describe process, describe strategy, what we're doing, what we're thinking. And this one's going to fall in like a little bit different category, right? Like typically I try to put my best games up online because, well, that's more entertaining, right? Nobody wants to watch average Joe, at least, I don't know. I suppose if you watch my live streams, right, you can see how frequently that I occasionally suck, but yeah. Anyway, so we are in the Colombo. I think I was working through premium supplies and or bureau projects, needed to play a legendary tier battleship, right? And so this video, I'm going to kind of focus on a little bit of positioning and a little bit of just sort of play smarter, not harder, right? We're not in a particularly aggressive playstyle ship, right? So I have this kind of built out for, and I'll show the build at the end too on this video, right? But a little bit more built out for sort of range, accuracy, AP shell damage, all the likes of that, right? So we see a fellow Colombo out there, so I tried to rush that shot out the door because I know that he has rolling smoke as well. So I wanted to get the trigger pulled on that one. So we did do 7,900 damage, right? Nothing crazy, but at least got some hits on him. And then, of course, we dropped our rolling smoke so that we could go unspotted. I think smoke detection, firing penalty, right? Whatever you want to call it, is like 10.4-ish, somewhere around there with how I've got this set up. So we were able to go undetected, and we're still, somewhat broadside to the beat cap over here, right? But anyway, we can shoot and try and help out with this Shimakaze. Yes, as we all know, it is always super important and helpful to try and get destroyers off the board early, especially Shimakaze destroyers, right? So just the insane amount of torpedoes that are very, very deadly that the Shimakaze can send out, right? So luckily we have a Kleber out there, and he is doing awesome work. He is doing the Lord's work, I swear to God there, man. But, he's got, so he takes out the Shimakaze, obviously. But we still wanted to help out, right? He did sacrifice quite a bit of his own health to get rid of that guy. But he, it got done, right? So anybody, any battleships that can help out with those spotted destroyers, get them off the board early, and then that's how you're going to end up with those games where you're just stomping the other team, right? Is getting those destroyers out of the picture early on. Because now that Kleber could potentially go cap the B and A zones, right? And just load up on points, right? So, yeah. Enemy Kleber on the other side, over on the outside flank over here, so I was considering helping out with him. He is kind of further out, and then of course now we don't have anything spotted to shoot at. But we're taking a little bit of a conservative play style here just because we know there's some heavy hitting battleships. There's Kurfürst, I think a Yamato, and then another Colombo, right? So we want to make sure our positioning, we want to make sure we're not too far up as to draw, too much attention to ourselves at once. And then also just be able to, get some, if we can get some shots off on these guys, and hopefully maybe 1v1, right? Like this Colombo is potentially the only one that can shoot us right now, right? So we're just kind of keeping the attention off of us a little bit early on until we figure out sort of the strategy of the red team, right? If somebody is, it's nice if an enemy battleship is pushing up into the zones, then you can kind of everybody focus fire on them, right? So we're just kind of seeing what's happening. So then I'm paying attention to the mini-map here, and we see over on the A flank side, 2 cruisers and a battleship that are sort of chasing away a cruiser on our team that's sort of trying to kite away. So, and he's out calling for support, which is great, right? Minotaur, right? That's why people are trying to pick on that ship, because it goes down easy. He's doing the smart thing, right? He's probably using smoke. He's kiting away, trying to survive, and calls for help while other people help, right? So normally you don't see this, right? So I try and pay attention to the mini-map myself, and I try and help out. But lo and behold, other people on our team did the same exact thing and got rid of both cruisers that were chasing that guy down, right? So there is a huge advantage to not chasing players that are sort of avoiding objectives, right? So if you're, depending on which side of the spectrum you're on here, right? So this guy had to go defensive mode. He wanted to kite away to try and survive. I'm talking about the one on our team, the Minotaur. And he managed to pull 2 cruisers that were just hyper focused on him just by looking at the mini map is what I'm making this assumption based on, right? Pulled those 2 cruisers towards him, and somebody else was able to get crossfires on those guys, and they're both dead super quick, right? So look on the mini map again, you can see that battleship that was also up there has now had to turn away and go in defensive mode himself, right? So if people start, if you notice yourself chasing somebody and you're moving away from objectives, it may be time to just stop chasing them. I always say this, right? Don't forget the game's only 15 minutes long. Right, and so if you're chasing someone away from an objective, yeah, you might kill them eventually, but then, meanwhile, all this other stuff could have happened. You're far away from zone caps, and it's going to take you another several more minutes to get back into that battle, right? So there's sort of this sacrificed fly play that, if you can drag enemies towards you, kite away from objectives, right? If it's just you, and you bring 2 or more ships with you, then you're taking those people out of the fight, and that can make a huge difference, right? So as far as our positioning goes, right, I'm trying to get myself a little bit more into the battle here. We do have, I say this too, I complain about people who are doing the exact same thing that I'm doing here, right? But we're halfway through the game, and I'm damn near at full health, right? So as a battleship player, especially ones with big health pools, you want to try and draw some fire occasionally just to, try and take some of that heat away from your teammates, right? So we're starting to move up here, and, I kind of sort of realized my mistake, but, part of it was we were going to go and help with those cruisers, and I was not expecting the rest of my team that was on this flank to also help with those cruisers, so a little bit unexpected there, right? So we'll take the shot at the Yamato just because he was nice and broadside. And of course I didn't get anywhere near as much damage as I was hoping. He did start moving forward here, but I was like, I should have just shot at the Kerr first. He was closer, right? But yeah, the broadside Yamatos are hard to avoid shooting at, right? Just because you can do some pretty wicked damage if you can hit those sweet spots right in the Citadel, right? So we do a little bit better there, but still no Citadel hit. We did do a steering gear damage though. And then now we're just going to have to kind of keep an eye on what these guys are doing. So if they're going to push in, me continuing to move this direction isn't really going to do too much for us. So let's see if we can get one more shot off on this Yamato, and then we'll maybe turn back in so that as those guys are pushing in, we still have an angle and still can shoot at them over while they're over in the decap chasing down, probably our battleship that's left over there, right? But the enemy count is starting to even out here, right? We lost another couple of ships, and so it's 5 on 4 here, so we do have to be careful. Always keep the, there's so many factors that play into winning a game, right? It seems kind of weird and obvious to say that, but I think a lot of times people aren't paying attention to the time. A lot of times people aren't paying attention to zones and positioning, right? How well are people positioned to be able to either retake or defend zones, and then points, right? We kind of don't, people don't pay attention to the points a lot as well, right? So I think points and time probably are the things that I kind of notice people kind of forgetting, right? But so we've got our allied destroyer up out in front here doing the spotting on these battleships for us. I would maintain he's probably pushing up a little too much, right? At this point, we've got 3 zones capped to their 1, and so getting himself spotted and killed was not the right call, right? We have the advantage here. We don't need to go in and attack and try and cap zones, right? We could take a defensive stance here and just try and wait for those ships to, sort of one by one move over to this flank, and then they would be hella easier to handle and take out one at a time, right? So they're capping the C spot, right? Zone C. So we know that's probably the destroyer, most likely, right? And so that's kind of who we need to worry about the most. We've got plenty of health, just need someone to spot, and so losing that destroyer was pretty big for us. Colombo, he's got, down to about a third health there, so we can handle him. So I'm not going to go into their zones, right? I'm not going to go off to their flank. We still have a points advantage here, and there is only 5 minutes left, right? So I don't need to muscle it out and fight for zones. And it's hard to tell what my ally here is thinking too. We have another Colombo that I think is pretty healthy at this point in the game too. So it's me and him. We're outnumbered, but we have the points lead, right? So we can still take a conservative stance, right? So the enemy capped C and D. We have A and B, right? So we're even on zones. We're even on points ticking up. We could sit this game out and do absolutely nothing, right? If all things stayed equal at this point, nobody died and the enemy didn't capture any other zones, we would win, right? So we can go on the defensive, which is kind of, it's all circumstance. Every single game is different, but that's what I chose to do here and so instead of going around and trying to cap D, which would potentially put me out of play as the enemy comes to this side of the map, right? So I'm like, all right, let's try and just defend the zones we have, because if all things considered equal, we can get those defends, maybe kill one more ship. That'll give us a little bit of a more point swing right there, and then we're good to go, right? So 4 minutes left in the match. We do have 100,000 damage, right? We did decent. I think my only caveat here of when it comes to my play is, we probably could have been a little more aggressive in that early to mid game to try and use some of our health points. But, like I said, it was all circumstantial, right? A lot of their battleships kind of hung out in the backfield as well. And so it just kind of happened that way. And then we can see the spotter plane, right? So this is important to look out for stuff like that, right? Because we see that spotter plane, we know there's a battleship over there. We know that's the Colombo. We know he's got a spotter plane, right? So we know exactly which way he is coming through. And then B is getting capped, right? So I know their destroyer is currently in B. And then, so the only thing that kind of fell apart for me here in this moment is my teammate Colombo also did the exact same thing I did and dropped his smoke, right? So I was kind of hoping he would remain undetected and then outside of his smoke, and then he would spot whatever battleship that is that's coming through there, coming between those islands. But it is what it is, right? He is thinking the exact same thing I am, right? Great minds think alike, I guess, right? But the key here is that he's pushing in to a Kleber that has lots and lots of torpedoes. That's the challenge there, right? So I was kind of thinking the Kleber would probably be coming around the outside over by me. But now that Kleber probably knows that our other Colombo is there, he's probably sending torpedoes that direction, right? So if I lose my teammate Colombo, yep, there's the Kleber. So yes, he did send torpedoes that direction. Allied Colombo managed to finish off their Colombo, so it'll be an even trade if we lose ours, and we'll still be up on points with 2 minutes left. And it did force the enemy Kleber, right? It did force the enemy destroyer to move away from the B cap. So now we're still even on our, points ticking up situation, right? Each of us has 2 zones. Red team's got 2 zones, blue team's got 2 zones. So we don't have to worry about that. So we're at this point, this decision point where, okay, there's one more battleship out there. I've got a lot of health, but I don't need to be aggressive, right? If I push up and head towards that B cap, I run the risk of, that Kleber, which has a lot of torpedoes. He's got 2 racks of 3 or something on each side, right? They got a lot of torpedoes. They're just not the greatest range. But if I'm moving towards him, it's gonna be way easier for him to hit me with torpedoes, right? So we can go full-on defensive mode since there's only 2 minutes left, right? That losing that battleship to that flood is not a big deal because we got rid of their other battleship as well. So we're just up on points, right? So we just need to move away. We got a minute left at this point. I'm just going to back up and move away, right? If they cap a zone, it's not going to matter. We're going to be up on points, right? So play smarter, read the situation, watch the points counters, and watch the timer. Games are only 15 minutes. People moving away from objectives, a lot of times you can just let them go and go somewhere else and support your teammates that are playing the objectives, and that's how you're going to win games, right? So not a crazy XP or damage earning game for us, and I think this Kleber realized what happened, right? I don't have a chance here. I need to be aggressive. Let's see if we can YOLO push at the Colombo, right? to win this game. But we get an easy kill for him as he comes around the corner and gets spotted there. Right, a couple. It's always what valuable. Just get try and get a couple last little gunshots or get those torpedoes off. Yeah, there comes his torpedoes. Like I said, his are not very long range, so because we're moving away from him instead of towards him, made it a lot more difficult for him to even have a chance there. And then yeah, 2 seconds up. So we're gonna win on points, right? And that's all it took, right? So yeah. Play it smarter, not harder. Always kind of read the situation, right? What are the circumstances of the game? Who are you up against? What's their team doing? Yeah. So yeah, nothing crazy high score. 2,000 XP is still a good score, but of course that gets us the gentleman's 4th place on the winning team. We did come out on top on credits, which is always nice when you're playing legendary tier, right? And then yeah, I'll go through the commander build. I think this is one where I'm using a free to play commander. It's not anybody special, right? It's just this Harissa Masa is Commander Geist, right? So I'll show you that. But aiming system mod, propulsion mod, concealment mod, and then I think what am I running for this last one? Yeah, main battery reload, right? And then yeah, like I said, we'll see who I always forget the name of this commander. Yeah, Angelo Iachino, right? I'm sure I'm not saying that right. I do have Adelaide, New Jersey on here. This is one I might revisit, right? Since Colombo they changed the stats on him. But Celiax for more AP shell damage. He's a free-to-play guy, so you could do the very, very similar build to this if you so desired. But right, I'm just kind of going main battery range, AP shell damage, right? Kind of picking all those things down the line. He does have this unique perk, the duration of repair party, when you're on damage con and repair party. And then this Testudo, right? This one might be a better choice than Will to Rebuild, because right, you might run into being able to use that more often than Will to Rebuild, right? Will to Rebuild relies on you being below 20% health and being close to an ally, so that yeah. So I don't know, we might change some things up here with Colombo since that got I don't know, this past year I think or something got a little bit of a nerf, a little bit of a stat change on it, and I feel like it's it warrants a revisit of my commander loadout, right? But thank you guys so much for watching my video all the way through. I really do appreciate that. And yeah, make sure you're subscribed to the channel as well. Do Legends videos just about every day. So we will see you guys tomorrow.